Hey guys, it's Larry. Welcome to Stewarding the Wealth Transfer. Well, today I have 4 stories from my life about change that I hope might inspire you to consider change, because I think that we tend to proceed along life in the most comfortable fashion that we have available to us, and usually that doesn't involve a lot of change. And sometimes we believe lies about change, and we don't realize how change is possible. And I don't want to get into, intense navel gazing and just looking at ourselves. But the thing is, I believe that God has given us a brain. We're created in the likeness of God. And we know what we are doing well at generally. And if you don't know, you can ask somebody. And we often know when we're not doing well. And that may or may not be apparent to other people. But I want to tell you that it's no accident that you have a curiosity about the great transfer of wealth that, I would have thought, and you, I'm sure, have thought it should have already started, at least in a more outward way. And I'm saying my definition of the great wealth transfer starting is when the 8 wells that Kim Clement prophesied, and I think, it's going to be the dinar or XRP or, precious metals. All these things are in play, but they're not fully engaged yet. So that's when I think the great transfer of wealth is starting. But it's a phenomenal opportunity. And when you think about it, God chose us to be here now, and we have the option to choose to engage or not. And I think many of you who watch this channel are going to engage, and then you're going to engage to various degrees. And some of you are going to swing 110%, and by other people's standard, maybe you only, hit 80% of what they did, but maybe you're starting with this much and they're starting with this much. This is a time for the great reversal, in my opinion. This is a time for when the last will be first, and pretty soon the first are going to be last. That's kind of the epitome of Proverbs 13:22, that the wealth of the wicked is going to be stripped away. The wealth of the wicked is stored up for the righteous. And so I want to tell you 4 stories of change that I've gone through. And I'm not telling you I was always smart enough. In fact, I was rarely smart enough to recognize that I had the opportunity as well as the responsibility to initiate the change. And some of these are optional, and I don't know if any of them are moral, but they've all been good choices. The first one, when you set your mind on a goal and begin to move toward where you want to go, do you have the capacity, the discipline, and the intentionality to carry it through? Because I believe that God wants you to engage in this wealth transfer. So do you have the discipline to begin to work out and do that? And I think if I look back on my life, about every decade, there's a life-changing decision. And I'm going down a road in a mediocre way, and I decide I'm going to change, and I'm praying that God would help me. Then in my 20s, I graduated from Bible school in 1987, and I was hired by my youth pastor, who took a senior pastor at a small church in the middle of Washington in a very rural area. And those were some of my funnest years. But my pastor, Bruce Morris, had a huge love for books, and I began to be challenged about why do I not want to learn? Why don't I love to read? Why am not I more passionate about learning? Because I didn't realize how much my life could change if I would just be disciplined with my mind and my time and decide to become a student. And so in my 20s, thanks to my relationship with Bruce, he taught me a love not only for God to grow deeper, and he taught me about ministry, but he taught me about how I should be committed to learn and discipline. And so it was like, it was in my 20s, but I changed. And I where your heart is, where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. I began to invest in books, and many of these books, as you look around this room, are still back from those days in the late 80s when I began investing in books. But obviously I buy books still every month. I don't read them all every month, But it's one of my favorite things. When I was crushing it in business, it was quite a threshold that I hit when I also got to the point where if I wanted a book, I would just buy it. One of the hardest things about going through bankruptcy after 2008, 2009 is I had to give up my book budget. And then after about 6 months, I thought I've got to have a book budget. And so it became like one book every 2 or 3 months. And then it was quite a threshold again when I was able to say, you know what, if there's a book I want to get, I'm just going to get it. It's just there's some things that are important. I still say no to myself all the time on clothes and other things I could spend money on. But, learning is something, that I'm committed to. The next thing that happened to me is I was a business guy. I had felt led of God to start building homes. And I've told the story to a degree, but one of my best friends, Brad and Patty are our best friends. My wife and I, we have this amazing couple. It's hard. I have a lot of good friends as a Christian man. But as a couple, we have a lot of acquaintances, but there's very few people that we actually do things with frequently. But we go out to dinner more than once a month with Brad and Patty, and we just love them, and they've spoken into our lives so much. And it started off kind of in a unique fashion because and Brad's not this kind of guy, but he pretty much watched me struggle as I began to try to learn how to be a builder. And it was pretty ambitious because we had a number of rentals, but I bought 2 acres, tore a house down, and got permitted to build 17 condominiums. This is before condominium insurance was so crazy. And I really struggled. And I basically went through all the money and then ended up having to borrow money from my parents and was just on the verge of losing that too. It was a horrible situation. Brad said, Larry, you need to join the National Home Builders. You need to begin to be mentored by people who are excellent in your field. And he essentially conveyed, you're a little arrogant if you think you can teach yourself about the wheel when you should just spend a few $1,000s. And I'm like, Brad, I don't have thousands of dollars. That's big money. And he goes, Larry, you don't have the ability to not spend a few $1,000s. And so it would be the equivalent today of $6,000 or something for me to do what I did. And I could have done it cheaper, but I didn't know. I thought if I'm going to do it, I'm just going to jump in, So I went to an expensive conference. The conference itself wasn't so much, but it was the airfare and the hotel and the eating. And I came back and my business grew, I think, close to 400% in the next year because I began to implement these ideas. I began to read more and I began to be mentored and I became a voracious learner and I began to hang around these people who were way beyond where I was. And it was crazy. My whole life turned around and I went from sales of 100,000 my first year in business, and that was a whole year in business, only 199.9 thousand in sales, to $6 million a year. As I'm thinking, let me add, I went from 1 home sale a year to 25 a year after the training. It was amazing. I learned that you can learn so much from who you're with. It's so hard to create, but it's so easy to emulate. And I would just encourage you guys, who do you need to emulate? What do you need to learn about? And do you have the discipline and the determination, to do it? And so there's no reason to recreate the wheel. And so sometimes, it's a radical departure, but the cross-pollination that happens as you hang around people who are making a huge difference and really cutting edge, it takes investment, it takes risk, and, it makes a big difference. Hey, I wanted to add another thing that I learned in the middle of all that because I had these plans. I went to this training. I learned how to sell 25 homes a year. So, I had a number of employees. We were just crushing it. It built a great neighborhood. And then I had this machine. I had to keep going. And I started looking around and I thought, I shouldn't probably keep going so hard, but I've been running as hard as I can and I keep making it, so I should keep going. That was 2007. So I ran hard through 2007, right through 2008 into a brick wall and just absolutely experienced failure. So I go from being more successful than I ever dreamed to just, a slow death financially over 2 years as I deplete all my savings as I get in the middle of this next subdivision and it doesn't go well and I know I'm failing and I have all these sleepless nights. And then we go through bankruptcy. They waited until we'd recovered, till we went through bankruptcy. So I'm just, abject failure, total catastrophe. Took back our nice new car, gave up our house, didn't want to fight them about it. We tried to get them to work with us. They didn't want to work with us. The subdivision bank couldn't work with us. So, we just had to walk away from it. The reason that I was able to hold on to my storage through that is we made the argument it wasn't worth anything because we had put hundreds of thousands of dollars down on it and the value of all commercial property fell over 20%. So we had put 20% down, so it had no value and we didn't make any profit off of it at that time. And so then, it delayed me being able to get any credit for 10 years. And so it really delayed being able to rebuild the remaining part of the storage because I had 4 acres fenced and open, ready to go. I just didn't have the credit to do it. The demand came back fairly quickly. By 2012, if I had the money, but I just couldn't access it because I had this credit failure. You might have a credit failure or a series of failures that you're facing, and you might be going, Larry, it's so easy for you because you've only experienced success. I experienced abject failure. I remember for like 6 years going in, we didn't really have employees. I just had to do the storage. It was a minimum wage job. And, here I am, a guy with a master's degree, former success, working a minimum wage job. But I sat in that chair, I learned, and I thought, God, what do I need to do different? And what I realized is my goals were wrong. And sometimes you can pray for God to bless your goals, but you don't have the right goals. And I had these goals of selling all these homes. And, I ran into this brick wall. And the crazy thing is I was making about 35 to 45,000 a home when I was selling all those homes. And so, but the thing that really frustrated me is the people that were buying my homes were making 50 or 60 or 70,000. And so the people who I was the one that had everything at risk. I risked all the money of my family, and yet my customers in 2 years were making a way bigger profit than I was. And I thought, why do I sell these homes? But it's a way harder business model to be a developer owner than it is to be a developer seller. It's actually not that hard because it can be very profitable to be a home builder, but to be a developer where you retain like apartments or self-storage, it's really hard to get over the hump on that. But I decided, God, that's what you want me to do. And I think there's some of you that are going right now, I need to rebuild what I've done. I lived all those years and I tried my best and I did my best, worked my hardest, but I wish I would have refocused. And you think, I don't know how to redo it. I don't know how to do it any differently than what I've done. But this is a time to do it differently. This is a time to call out to God and go, God, will you help me do it? You've given me the wisdom to see it. Please give me the strength and the wisdom and the insight and the discipline. God, help me to push through this. And I think that's what this is going to be a time. We are entering a time of catastrophe for the wicked, but the wealth are going to, the wise and the godly are going to enter a kingdom time where there's not only going to be great revival, but there's going to be financial restoration. And so if you feel that you are called to rise up, I believe that's a godly calling. And you may look around and you go, there's no way this could happen to me. But the thing is, it's happened before to so many people. And I'm here to tell you, if you want to do better and you want to go a different way, then you need to prayerfully lean into it and say, God, what can you show me? Who can I hang out with? Who's going to show me? God, you show me. And then he will give you little things that you can hold on to, and then hopefully you turn those into bigger things. Maybe you can only afford 100 XRP, but maybe with help you'll get up to 1,000 XRP. And then maybe you'll get to 2,000. But wherever you're at, this is a time of growth and preparation. And some of you are going, you could just be mocking and go, that's a dumb message, because it's not for you. It's not for everybody. The last thing I'm just going to say, and it's kind of weird, but today I passed 50 pounds on my carnivore lifestyle, or, ketovore. And I will just tell you, I didn't think it was possible. I was pretty jealous of these other people who could do it, but I didn't think I could. I just thought I believed the lie that I had a really efficient body that was just able to hold on to all this weight that I had. And I didn't think I could, because I've tried where you have to eat these little baskets of food, these little tiny weird things, and you just basically ate a very small volume of food, and I hated it. I was able to lose 15 pounds. It was hell. I did it for like 35 days. I hated it. I couldn't stand it, and I would binge. And, I didn't think I had a problem until I tried to do something like that. And I thought, I'm not going to be able to do this. But I was watching Jordan Peterson on YouTube. I began to think about it. And actually, my brother, he called me aside, and I can't remember if I initiated asking him about it, but it took me about 2 weeks to think about it. And I thought, man, what would it look like? What in my life would have to change if I really wanted to change the way that I ate, And so, and what would it be like if I was, my ideal weight? What would that be? I decided that my ideal weight would have been 70 pounds lower than what I was. So that's, the definition exceeds the definition of obesity. And so I thought about it, and I thought, I'm going to have to change some of the favorite things that I do. I can't expect my wife to cook for me. I'm going to have to cook for myself, which I haven't done that every meal since I was single. And, there's all these other things. But I finally thought on Memorial Day, I'm going to do that. And of this decade, it's been one of the best decisions I've made. But, I'm not where I need to be at. And, I'm not, there's a lot of enjoyment over setting a goal, adjusting your sails, and start to move in a more positive direction in your life. But you can learn how to do it, and you need to hang out with people who will introduce you. But my brother introduced me, then I began to learn. And then with the books, books are way easier. It's not as intimidating. You can't tell a reader from a non-reader, a learner from a non-learner. But are you a learner or a non-learner? Are you a reader? Do you learn from YouTube? What do you need to do? Do you need to change your financial life? Do you need to change your wealth life or your health life? Do you need to change your spiritual life? What is the change? Because what I'm realizing is the biggest gains in life are made when you make adjustments. If you always are sailing the same way, sometime you're going to hit some rocks. You need to learn how to change directions. And don't change directions because the crowd is saying it. What is God saying to you? I think God helped me every single time with that. And it's interesting as I think about it that two of them are in regards to how I perceive myself because of, not letting myself go. I think a lot of people believe the lie that they should let themselves go. I think the devil's happy when we let ourselves go. I don't think you should let yourself go. Reclaim what you can. You may not be able to do what you used to be able to do, but, I used to wonder what would it be like if I weighed, what would a 200-pound man feel like getting out of a chair versus a 250 or a 260-pound man? I wondered about that. Now I'm wondering what would it be like at 180 pounds, and that's probably about where I'd like to be. And I think, I'll get in the 180s. I can see I will. And I want you to see that you can. And so, you may go, oh, you should be more spiritual, Larry. Well, I do think it's spiritual because I'm praying that God would do it. But the reason I say it on this channel is I believe that money is also something. It's not the most important thing because you can't serve money and God, but you should use money as you serve God. And I believe that this is a time in all of our lives that you guys, before this transfer has fully begun, although we've had plenty of time to get ready, what are you going to do? Are you going to regret it? And they say there's often three different kinds of people. There's people that watch it happen. There's people that wonder what happened, and there's some people that make it happen, or those that engage and participate. And I hope that you're somebody that will not regret how you respond to this transfer of wealth. So what does that mean? You need to engage your mind. You need to engage your pocketbook. You need to engage your discipline. And you might go, oh, Larry, it's so easy for you sitting around with those silly dogs that are very sleepy right now. And, it's easy. No, I am in a good spot, I admit. But you wouldn't believe how much sacrifice there has been in our lives, in my wife and my both life. We always chose to live on well under what we made because we always had to have a margin to invest, and that continues to this day. Do you do that? And you might go, well, I just don't know how to get started. Well, if you aren't investing, then you can't. It's going to be very difficult for you to participate in this. And if you don't have the habit or the discipline of investing, then you aren't going to be able to hold on to it very well, are you? And so I've made mistakes. I have opinions. I understand the nuances. I'm not, I don't know everything, but everybody's got to have their own plan. But I hope that you're somebody that knows how to trim your sails, adjust your tack for a different direction as God leads you. And I hope that you don't miss these opportunities that we have during the wealth transfer. So, as you look at your life, are you learning what you should learn? Are you healthy to the degree that you're happy that you're healthy? Are you engaged in ministry and making a difference in other people's lives? I think it's almost more important to affect other people than to be worried about yourself. But I believe that God wants us to be reaching out and mentoring other people. And as you develop expertise and knowledge and passion, people will seek you out. I love to give my time away. And I want to encourage you to do that. And I realize why some people charge money for their mentoring ability because it limits those who can come in. But and I'm not, speaking ill or whatever of those who choose to do that. But I want to give the best ideas and examples away for you so that you can impact more and more people. But I am praying for you that you will run after your destiny, that you will believe God, that you can go from the last to the first, that He can bless you monetarily, He can bless you relationally, He can bless your marriage, He can bless your relationship with your kids. He's going to turn the hearts of fathers to their children and the hearts of children to their fathers. And I believe that God can help you wherever you're at, but I pray that you will not regret. And this is not for just everybody else. This is for you too. You may go, I could work really hard and get $100 for the wealth transfer. Well, if I only had $100 for the wealth transfer, I think it'd be a great time to get $20 or $30 worth of dinar and then spend the rest of it on XRP and then begin to pray. There's a guy who I saw who was a young man who didn't have much investments because he's in ministry in this town, and he's somebody that I believe I was even supporting him at this time. And so he was talking to me. A lot of people support this young couple. And I asked him if he had any investments. And so I gave him a couple $100 and I said, I'm going to give you this so that you'll begin to invest in XRP. And he told me that was about a year ago. He goes, Larry, that was like a life-changing thing. I began to realize a few $100s could really make a difference when you understand what God's going to do with this. And so he began to just take on little tasks and save little monies for his birthday or, whatever, and buy things at, $25 and $60 at a time. And he told me now he's got a couple thousand XRP. And I'm just so impressed that what God could do, because we get a chance, and it doesn't seem like it at the time, but a little change can turn into a big movement, because change happens slow. The older we get, the more like ships we're not. We're not little dinghies that just spin in circles. We're like ships. And so you begin to change course. It will bring big dividends. And I think this is a kingdom time. And so I just wanted to say, whether you want to begin to incorporate discipline in your life, whether you want to begin incorporate learning into your life, whether you want to be incorporating mentoring in your life and go into business in a way that you've never done, and you want to figure out how to do something you've not done, or you need to redo everything you've done because you've been going one way and you should have been going another way. And you go, I can't change. I don't know. I've got this kind of a restaurant. I should have this kind of restaurant. Or I have this kind of business, but all I do is work for other people all the time, and I want to work for myself. Well, that is not an ungodly aspiration. And I believe that it's one that God can help you to do. But you're going to not be able to spend all your money. You've got to, invest. You've got to be thrifty. You need to be paying your tithes. You need to set yourself up for a life of blessing and, one that God can honor. And I believe that he will. Test him in giving your tithes and offerings and see if he will not provide increase and blessing to you. So I just wanted to add that last one, because some of you have done well, but it's time for a turnaround and a change, and you don't know if you have enough faith for that. I do have faith that God can help you with that.